So you are standing in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
The kettle is, it's just starting to whistle. You're doing something incredibly mundane, like pouring water, and your partner says something completely neutral.
Right, just a passing comment.
Exactly. Maybe they ask if you took out the trash, or, I don't know, they mention a slight change in the weekend plans, and suddenly, without any warning at all, your chest tightens like a fist.
Yeah.
Your throat completely closes up, your hands go cold, you force this polite smile, you nod, you pour the tea, but inside, I mean, it feels like an air raid siren is blaring. You are in full fight-or-flight mode.
It's terrifying when that happens.
It really is. Welcome to the show, by the way. If you are joining us today, you are the learner, someone looking to understand these strange, unspoken forces that basically shape our lives. And the question I want to start with today is, well, why? Why does a completely ordinary, safe moment in your own kitchen suddenly feel like a life or death threat?
Well, because in that moment, you aren't actually reacting to your partner's voice.
Wait, I'm not.
No, you're reacting to an echo. Your body is responding to a history that is much, much older than the conversation you're currently having.
Wow.
Yeah. Today, our deep dive is taking us into the core of Gestalt therapy, family inheritance, and honestly, the very real biology of how our ancestral past lives right inside our nervous systems.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. And our mission here is to decode these involuntary physical reactions. We want to understand the mechanics of why we unconsciously repeat our family's survival strategies, and crucially, how we can finally bring those old, painful loops to a close.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because jumping into this Gestalt perspective, the core premise hits on such a visceral level for me.
Yeah, how so?
Well, the idea is that the panic in the kitchen isn't about your partner's words at all. It's an inherited script. Like, your partner's tone might have accidentally mirrored the exact cadence your father used right before an explosive argument, or their passing comment triggered the same heavy, impenetrable silence your mother used to wear like armor when she was angry.
That armor is so palpable for a child.
Exactly. And to understand the mechanism here, I keep thinking about it like a computer system. It's like your brain is suddenly running a background software update that you never authorized.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, and the code for that update was actually written by your grandparents' stress.
Right, and if we look at the biology of how that code gets written, it's not just a metaphor. We know that trauma and chronic stress physically alter the nervous system.
They literally rewire it.
They do. A child's nervous system develops by mirroring the adults around them. So if a parent is constantly in a state of low-grade hyperarousal, jaw clenched, breath shallow, always anticipating a threat.
The toddler just absorbs that.
Exactly. The toddler's nervous system calibrates to that exact same baseline of unsafety. Epigenetics even suggests these stress markers can be passed down biologically.
Which sounds incredibly heavy.
It does sound heavy, but Gestalt therapy approaches this with a really beautiful reframe. It asks us to drop the clinical pathologizing.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning, we aren't looking at these moments as dysfunction. We aren't looking for some broken part of your brain. Instead, Gestalt views these reactions as open gestalts.
Open gestalts? Which essentially means an unfinished conversation, right?
Yes, exactly. It's a cycle of emotion or a need that was never allowed to close. You are physically carrying the unmet needs of your family tree.
That is so powerful.
Think of an aunt who had to bury her own ambitions to become a caretaker for everyone else. Or a grandfather who felt a deep, welling pride for his children, but literally lacked the emotional vocabulary to express it.
So it just stays trapped.
Right. Their kinetic energy, those uncompleted emotional cycles, gets handed down through the unwritten rules of the household. We absorb the belief that love must be earned, or that anger is lethal, long before we even have the language to question it.
I mean, I get the theory, but frankly, this is where I struggle with the practical application.
Tell me more about that.
Well, if I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm completely hijacked by a full-blown panic response because of my grandfather's unspoken anger, how is this actionable?
It feels impossible in the moment, doesn't it?
Totally. I can't go back in time. I can't dig up my ancestors and force them to process their feelings, you know? If my brain is completely offline in that moment, how am I supposed to resolve a conflict that didn't even start with me?
It feels like you've been handed a complex lock with no key. But the Gestalt solution doesn't require time travel.
Thank goodness.
Right. And it doesn't even require you to drag your living family members into therapy to hash out decades of drama. The resolution is entirely about bringing awareness to the present moment. It's the practice of the pause.
The pause.
Yes. When the kettle is whistling and your chest seizes up, the ingrained reflex is to shrink or people pleaser or snap back. The work is simply interrupting that reflex by pausing, dropping into your body, and asking one raw question.
Which is,
What is this?
just what is this? But in the middle of a panic response, pausing feels like, I don't know, asking someone to stop and meditate while their house is actively on fire.
I hear that all the time. But that is exactly why you aren't trying to put the fire out. No. You aren't trying to instantly calm down or fix the panic. You are just allowing two realities to coexist.
Okay, walk me through that.
You allow the safe adult standing in the kitchen to witness the fearful, inherited reflex of the child who believes they are in danger. You say, internally, I feel my chest tightening. I feel the terror of saying the wrong thing.
So you're just narrating it almost.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that the moment you offer yourself that non-judgmental observation, the inherited pattern loses its invisibility.
Oh, wow.
It stops being just who I am, and it becomes a physical sensation I am experiencing. That separation is the beginning of agency.
It takes the shame completely out of the equation.
Exactly.
It's not a character flaw, it's just a transmission from the past that you're currently hosting. But if we really want to understand how to dismantle this, we need to look at how these echoes get trapped inside of us in the first place, right?
We do.
Because in Gestalt, there's this foundational mechanism called the cycle of experience.
Yes, this is the heartbeat of how organisms interact with their environment. The cycle of experience is the natural rhythm of being alive.
How does it start?
It begins with a sensation. A need arises. Maybe it's a physical need like hunger, or an emotional need like grief, or just a desire for connection.
Okay, so sensation happens first.
Right. Sensation leads to awareness. You realize, I am angry or I am sad. Next, your energy gathers. Your nervous system physically prepares you to take action. Your breath deepens. Your muscles engage.
Like gearing up to do something about it.
Exactly. Then comes the action itself. You speak up, you set a boundary, you let yourself cry, and finally you reach resolution. The need is met, the energy is metabolized, and the gestalt closes.
And then you go back to normal.
You return to a state of rest, yeah.
But that's what happens when things go perfectly.
Which is rare.
Right. The tragedy here is what happens when that natural cycle is interrupted. Think about a child whose joy is massive and loud, but the tired, stressed out parents deem it too much.
Oh, absolutely.
Or a child who gets angry, which is a totally natural human emotion, but expressing it is met with physical punishment, or even worse, an icy, terrifying silence.
The cycle can't complete. The energy that gathered in the body has literally nowhere to go.
So it just stalls out.
It stalls out. And what I see so often in practice is the realization that we build our entire adult identities around these stalled cycles.
That is so true. We walk around calling ourselves the peacekeeper.
Right.
Or the fiercely independent one. Or the easygoing friend.
And we mistake our armor for our skin. Those aren't personalities. They are survival strategies. They are shock absorbers you developed as a child to keep the fragile ecosystem of your family intact.
Because you had to.
Exactly. If your anger destabilized your mother, you learned to short-circuit the anger before it could even register in your awareness.
But we pay a massive toll for that protection, don't we? By constantly short-circuiting our own cycles, we end up living in what Gestalt therapy calls the avoidance zone.
It's an exhausting place to live.
It really is. It's this murky space where we constantly expend energy to suppress our own vitality. And there are some very specific terms for how we operate in this avoidance zone. I want to walk through these because honestly, learning about them felt like someone was reading my diary.
I think a lot of people feel that way. Let's start with deflection.
Okay, yeah, deflection.
So deflection is the art of batting the energy away. When a moment gets too intimate or tension starts to rise, the energy feels unbearable. So you change the subject, you over-intellectualize a painful feeling instead of just feeling it.
Or you crack a joke. I mean, I am absolutely guilty of this.
Humor is a very common one.
Yeah, you're in the middle of a serious, vulnerable conversation, the discomfort peaks, and suddenly I'm making a sarcastic comment to break the tension.
It ruins the intimacy.
It totally does, but it successfully avoids the threat of real connection. Then there's the second tactic, which is confluence. And this is basically blurring the boundary between yourself and another person to avoid any possible friction.
Confluence is the complete erasure of your own edges. It's the classic, oh, I don't mind, whatever you want to do is fine.
Even when you secretly have a strong preference.
Right. You mold your mood to match the room. If your partner is stressed, you instantly become stressed, so there's no gap between you.
That's wild. Why do we do that?
The survival logic here is that if we are exactly the same, you cannot possibly be mad at me, and you cannot abandon me.
Which sounds completely exhausting, but the one that really stopped me in my tracks was retroflection.
Ah, yes, retroflection.
This is when the gathering energy of a need or an emotion is turned back inward against yourself. So instead of directing your anger outward where it belongs, you swallow it.
And it metabolizes as crippling anxiety.
Exactly. Or you hold back your tears so forcefully that it turns into a migraine or sheer physical exhaustion. So retroflection is basically like swallowing a lit firecracker just to keep the room quiet for everyone else.
That is a perfect way to describe it. And if you swallow a lit firecracker, the explosion still happens. It just happens to your internal organs.
That is a terrifying image.
But it's true. That energy has mass. It has physiological reality. When you retroflect, the adrenaline and cortisol that were meant to fuel an outward action are trapped in your tissues.
So it literally makes you sick.
Yes. That is why retroflection physically manifests as chronic tension, digestive issues, or deep chronic fatigue. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at these behaviors, deflection, confluence, retroflection, with profound respect.
Respect?
Really?
Yes, your nervous system is brilliant. It did exactly what it needed to do to keep you connected to a family system where being fully, vibrantly authentic simply wasn't safe. You survived by doing this.
Okay, we survived. We adapted brilliantly. But now we are adults, and swallowing firecrackers is giving us panic attacks when the kettle whistles.
Right.
So how do we dismantle these ingrained habits without having to spend the next 10 years dissecting every single childhood memory?
You dismantle it by bringing the unfinished business directly to the physical body right now in the present moment. You locate the tension, like literally finding it in your body.
Exactly. When you even think about setting a boundary with your boss, does your throat tighten? Does your stomach knot up?
For me, it's always the stomach.
Right, that tension isn't random. That is exactly where the uncompleted action lives. So you bring your awareness there, you breathe into the tightness in your stomach, and you literally ask your body, what are you holding? What was never allowed to be said?
And, you know, as I reflect on this, I realize this requires a massive shift in how we view the people who raised us.
It really does.
Because when we ask, what am I holding? The instinct is to point the finger outward. I'm holding the mess my family made.
We love to blame.
We do. We view ourselves as passive clay that they molded. But there's this concept of projection in Gestalt that flips the script entirely.
Yes, projection is a tough one to face.
It asks us to look at what disowned parts of ourselves we are projecting onto them. Like, if I am constantly infuriated by my mother's passivity, Gestalt asks me to turn the mirror around. Where am I denying my own terror of speaking up?
This raises an important question about personal agency. Projection isn't about blaming the victim or letting abusive behavior off the hook.
Right, we have to be clear about that.
It is about recognizing that we often see our own disowned, unintegrated parts reflected back to us in the traits that trigger us the most in others. It is much easier to be furious at a parent's emotional distance than it is to sit with our own profound discomfort with intimacy.
Because that would mean looking at ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we stop seeing our family merely as the problem and start seeing them as cracked, imperfect mirrors of our own stalled cycles, the entire dynamic shifts.
Which perfectly aligns with how Gestalt redefines the word responsibility, because it points out that responsibility is not about taking the blame for the trauma you inherited.
Not all.
It literally means responsibility, like with a hyphen. The actual cultivated ability to respond from my whole grounded self today, rather than just reacting on autopilot from a wound I got 20 years ago.
Exactly. Responsibility, the capacity to choose your response in the gap between the stimulus and the reaction.
That gap is everything.
It is. The goal of this exploration is not to achieve some state of perfect healing where you never feel anxious again. That is an impossible burden.
And kind of a setup for failure.
It really is. The goal is the alchemy of awareness. It is happening in micro moments. It's feeling the absolute terror of saying no, letting your hands shake, feeling your voice tremble, and saying no anyway.
Just doing it afraid.
Yes, it is feeling the desperate familiar urge to people-please your partner in the kitchen, but taking a breath and choosing to state your actual preference instead. Every single time you do that, you allow a stalled cycle of experience to complete.
You close the Gestalt.
You do. You provide undeniable proof to your nervous system that it is finally safe to be real.
You let the kinetic energy move. Sensation, awareness, action, resolution. But, even as we practice that responsibility, there is still the undeniable weight of the past.
There is.
If we accept that we can't completely erase these inherited traumas, that our grandparents' stress is literally still echoing in our biology, how do we ultimately find peace with carrying it?
By fundamentally changing your relationship to the carrying.
Yeah.
You cannot reject your cellular inheritance.
You can't just evict it.
No, trying to rip it out of you is a war you will lose. It's like trying to unbreathe the air you've already taken into your lungs. Instead of rejecting it, the task is to metabolize it.
Metabolize
You
it.
digest what serves your growth,
Yeah.
you compost the pain that doesn't, and you allow the rest to return to the earth.
There is a beautiful grounding analogy for this that I want everyone listening to picture. Just imagine you are standing at the edge of a deep, quiet river.
It's such a vivid image.
It is. Your pockets are incredibly heavy, weighed down with smooth stones. These stones represent the swallowed grief, the unspoken apologies, the survival terror of your ancestors. You've carried them your whole life, assuming they belong to you.
We all do.
But in this moment of awareness, you don't take the stones and hurl them into the water in a fit of rage. You don't curse the stones. You simply kneel down by the water, you gently place them on the bank, and you say, I honor what you protected, but I will not drown for you.
I honor what you protected, but I will not drown for you. There is immense grace in that release.
There really is.
And the beautiful paradox is that when you stop running from your family's legacy, when you can place the stones down with reverence rather than resentment, you realize you are a living archive of their resilience too.
Oh, I love that.
Their pain lives in you, but so does their survival. If their silence taught you to be hypervigilant, well, it also gave you the profound gift of deep, empathetic listening.
Because you had to listen to survive.
Right. And if their rigidity showed you the devastating cost of control, it also gave you the capacity to understand the breathtaking beauty of surrender.
So what does this all mean? It means the inheritance transforms. It goes from being a curse that controls you to an offering you bring to the world. If you grew up completely unseen, your offering is that you know exactly how to deeply, truly witness others.
It becomes your medicine. But we must be honest with ourselves. This healing is not a straight upward line.
No, definitely not.
It is a spiral. You don't just put the stones down by the river once and walk away completely unburdened forever. Life is going to hand you a new mirror tomorrow.
Like your partner asking about the trash again.
Exactly. Your child will give you a certain look, or a colleague will send a dismissive email, and the old reflex to shrink or attack will flare right back up. But because you are on a spiral, you are meeting that same familiar theme from a higher vantage point.
You have more perspective.
You will meet it with softer hands. You will have more space in your chest to hold the discomfort.
You pause. You feel the tightness. You ask, what is this?
You stay with it. You don't rush to fix the fear. You just let your breath move gently through the exact space where the silence and the shame used to live.
This has been such a profound, rich exploration today. To bring all these threads together, if you find yourself freezing in the kitchen when the kettle whistles, you are not broken.
You are simply human.
You are human. Your family's survival story is simply echoing inside your nervous system. By learning to notice your interrupted cycles of experience, by bravely identifying your exhausting survival strategies like swallowing the lit firecracker of retroflexion or erasing your edges in confluence, you can begin to bring awareness back to your body.
You can step out of the avoidance zone.
Exactly. You can reclaim your responsibility.
It all comes back to presence. The final thought I draw from our exploration of Gestalt is a deeply moving reframe of what it means to heal.
Please share it.
It suggests that the most radical act of self-love is not escaping your roots or cutting off your history. It is growing beyond them, while still honoring the soil that grew you.
Honoring the soil.
Yes. You don't have to leave yourself behind to be whole. You just have to bring all of those fragmented, unfinished parts of yourself into the room, into the present moment.
Honoring the soil. I love that so much. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the learner, with a question to chew on over the next few days.
It's a big one.
It is. We spent this time dissecting the open gestalts you inherited from your past, the heavy stones your ancestors left in your pockets. But if life truly is a spiral, look honestly at your own actions today. What specific cycle of experience are you interrupting right now?
What are you holding back?
Exactly. What open gestalt are you leaving unfinished, swallowed, or avoided that your future self or your own descendants will eventually have to close for you? Next time you hear the kettle whistle, take a breath, stay in your body, and ask yourself what finally needs to be spoken.